Hello, and welcome to Appleton Engaged. I'm your host, Timber Smith, DEI coordinator for the city of Appleton. And Appleton Engaged is a podcast that explores the many people, organizations, and resources that make our community a great place to live, work, and play. So whether you're a longtime resident or just getting to know Appleton, join us as we learn more about our community together. Hello there, Appleton Engaged listeners. This week you have just me. I'm just going to say, we miss Andy. We always miss Andy, but Andy had some other responsibilities, so this week you're just stuck with just Timber. Now, the great thing is, though, you're not really stuck with just Timber. What you're really stuck with is Timber and a great guest. Yes, we have a fantastic guest this week, and I'm really excited about this guest. I've had an opportunity to have many conversations with them, and we have a podcast that is about community engagement, and I believe this person here is definitely one of the definitions of community engagement. So this is going to be a fantastic conversation. So without any further ado, this week's guest is Jim Case, neighborhood leader and community connector for Common Ground. Hey, Jim.
Howdy, Timber. Great to be here.
Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for making time for myself and the Appleton Engaged listeners.
Love to.
You ready to jump in?
All set.
All right. Jim, can you please tell us about yourself and your association with Appleton and the Fox Cities region?
Well, my wife, Sweet Regina, and I moved here 33 years ago to take over a nonprofit counseling center right down on College Ave that worked with people from off the street, Lawrence students, counselees of all sorts. And from that point on, I recognized something about myself because I grew up in a very isolated environment back out in the country where my folks didn't really associate with many people. It was lonely. It was isolated. I didn't really have a sense of community at all, and I didn't really know what my identity was either, being so isolated. So skipping a long story to the point, when we came here and settled in those 33 years ago, my wife and I determined that this was going to be our adopted home. We'd never been in Wisconsin before, but Appleton, Fox Cities were going to be our adopted home, and we were going to invest. So she likes to say now, in the home we lived in, the only home we've owned, in the Herb Park neighborhood that we direct, that the only way they're going to get us out of here is feet first. Out of the house, out of the neighborhood, and out of the city. We're committed for the long run, for the really helping to help this place thrive.
I love it. Okay. Jim, can you please tell us about Common Ground?
Yeah, Common Ground has been around for a little while, and it grew out of a 2001 discussion of the Community Health Action Team chat, sponsored by Theta Care. And at that point, it was addressing identified needs in an unprecedented effort. Several faith communities joined forces with the Fox Valley Literacy Coalition to develop LitWork, a program providing literacy support to local residents with language needs. That was its onset, its origin. But since then, Common Ground has been a bridge connecting leaders of the faith community, of all faiths, with leaders of the secular community, with a focus on bettering the Fox Cities. But currently, and this is our main focus right now, we're working to do this by helping the community learn to communicate effectively across divides, to build bridges, find similarities, and become a more understanding community as a whole. So it accomplishes this through a variety of workshops, trainings, conversations, with that main purpose of bringing people together who wouldn't normally come together to build relationships functionally, but also friendships. Imagine that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like Common Ground does a really good job of just providing this safe space and saying, here are some rules. Let's talk about it now. And almost fearlessly, no matter what the topic matter is, and doing the best to try to draw as many different types of voices into those conversations. And this is an election year. This is great stuff that needs to be done.
I knew we were going to get into that at some point.
Oh, no, I'm not getting into it at all. I'm just stating, though, this is, to have the ability to have civil conversation about things in subject matters that people are very passionate about, it's an important thing to do, both to provide the spaces, but also to give people a set of guidelines in which to do it in.
Right. Because we all know in the culture we live in now that engaging in conversation, let alone relationships with people that differ from us, and there's basic differences like ethnicity, lifestyle, age, socioeconomic realities, and then there's the differences that are formed around convictions and beliefs that are oppositional to one another. We all know that it's very difficult for us to even move towards people outside of our homogenous tribe that we have a comfort zone in. And because that takes an intentional purpose. It very, very rarely happens accidentally. But we recognize that if we don't do that in this current environment of polarization, loneliness, and isolation, that the angst between groups will only grow. And of course, we see that played out in social media all the time.
What are some of the conversations that Common Ground has facilitated?
Well, I'm going to get a little reminder from a friend because there were so many of them. But here's a number of things that we have, topics that we've addressed. Interfaith relationships between religions and faiths all across the board. What it means to actually belong in a diverse community. What it means to thrive in a community during a pandemic, COVID. Economic disparities, intergenerational challenges, whiteness, being able to thrive in community, gun violence, abortion, education, welcoming newcomers, immigrants, and refugees, mental health, post-pandemic, including amongst our youth, and drug legalization. But we learned something along the way, Timber, that I think has been helpful to our community because we learned as we tried to invite people into community conversations around really big topics that they could share their thoughts and their convictions and their beliefs within the context of dialogue and not debate. We can talk about how we do that. It still left them without something to do with it. So we realized that the topics that we wanted to center on allowed individuals to come away recognizing that they could do something where it was locally relevant and personally actionable.
The first place my head went to was, it's not easy to get people of difference to come to the same spaces. So how is Common Ground approaching that, right? Because that is the goal, right? If you have all the same type of peoples come to the conversations, then that's kind of defeating the purpose of having the conversation.
Absolutely. It takes a mindset that we're trying to nurture in individuals, and I think it's happening because people are seeing the angst, the polarization, the anger, the separateness that's out there every day in an increased measure, and it will only ramp up during this next election season, as we all know. So there's an awareness that something has to be done, not just on the national scene, the political scene, where there isn't much collaboration, there isn't relationships across the aisle, but in their own neighborhoods, amongst their own families, like at family gatherings and Thanksgiving. You just simply avoid topics. So there's an awareness that we want to perpetuate and tickle to say there are things that can be done if you're intentional about it, if you're willing to step out of your comfort zone, and if you're guided so it's not too overwhelming, too scary, but it does take a purposefulness to move towards, we'll just say the other, whoever the other might be. It doesn't happen accidentally. It just doesn't. So we're looking at this from the end game, that relationships change slowly. And there's some people that simply won't move out of their entrenched positions in camp. But I don't think that's the majority if there's tools and there's assistance that help them move in that direction.
Most definitely. I don't know if the point of conversations like that is ever to move anyone's beliefs or to help them gain understanding. If not, that's probably it. Like, to gain a respect for another point of view.
Good clarification, Timber, because nothing we do is persuasional.
Right.
It's not to invite people to to engage in trying to change another's mind. It's to be understood and to listen well with that perspective of, can you please help me understand? Where you're not crafting a response. And our ground rules that we set up and ask for agreement on really set the stage for dialogue versus debate. And when people experience that, they realize this is not that hard. It's intentional, but it's not that hard, and they enjoy it.
So you brought up a really good point. So I've actually, and I think I've shared with you, I've definitely borrowed those ground rules to facilitate some conversations. But just so our listeners can understand a little bit, do you know what are some of those ground rules that are utilized for these conversations?
Well, here's some of them. And these particular ones are ones that we've used in an interfaith group that I am facilitating, where we invited leaders from every faith group across the valley. Especially was this valuable during the Hamas and Israel confrontations, because we had a Muslim leader and a Jewish leader from Moses Montefiore Synagogue, as well as Buddhist, Hindu, Sikh, Unitarian, and Catholic, as well as Protestant, Christian, and a few others. There's about 10 or 11, so I usually miss a couple. And we started by lighting a candle and sharing a brief go-around of intention, asking individuals to come to the meeting with honesty and sincerity, sharing equal time, listening for understanding before problem solving, to come with humility, with no hard and fast assumptions as to what others believe or where points of disagreement are or might be. And when speaking about their faith, to refrain from holding up ideals against another's practice, but rather speak each of their own personal ideals alongside another's ideals. And then finally, in order to respect the time of all, just to agree with the details of how we'll proceed. Now, there's some other ground rules that we use more generally, such as no interruptions, that I will speak for myself and out of my own experience and not for a large group of people, and so forth. And we review these 2 or 3 times. We ask for any additions or subtractions, and we ask for agreement. And I have yet to have a person who said they would agree with these ground rules and then go against that and cause issues. Once people know the guidelines, they have been more than willing to abide by them.
Okay, I got 2 questions. How are the topics chosen? And how can our community members or our organizations or businesses utilize common ground? And because is this something that do you offer to come help facilitate conversations for other organizations or partner with them? Is there a conflict resolution portion to this? Because it feels kind of like that's maybe not official, but almost kind of, I don't know, interwoven in a way. Help us understand.
Well, I'll start with your second question or your last one. We haven't been invited in particularly to resolve conflicts, but organizations and primarily have done that most extensively with Bolt Company, where we've trained facilitators and we've had internal conversations within their employee group that has been very beneficial. And they know the particular issues that stand out that have caused disagreement or conflict. And so they will inform us of those, and we can form group practice and things like that to bring those into consideration. In terms of the topics addressed, we do a lot of interviewing and research. As I said earlier, it's not just the topics that are of national significance, but we want it to be something that is relevant locally and personally actionable. And so we do some interviewing externally. We do a lot of discussion internally to be able to come up with topics that really fit the bill.
Can you please share a narrative that will help our listeners understand the importance of common ground?
Yeah, I got a couple for you. I'm sure all your guests do. But one that really stands out is about last spring. It was during the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. That was on people's minds. And we wanted to do a community conversation around immigration, welcoming immigrants and refugees. were aware that Appleton North High School was putting on multiple performances of The Fiddler on the Roof. And if you're aware of the theme of that story, it's about Ukrainian Jewish refugees who were being persecuted. That's the whole background of the story.
Oh.
So we thought this is prime time for that. And we also engaged Moses Montefiore Synagogue to bring their leadership and invite their congregants to people our groups alongside the performers and staff at Appleton North. And we put all of those features and factors together at North in their commons around performances, and it just worked magically to engage people around these multifaceted themes that coincide with local groups and local initiatives like the Fiddler on the Roof performances. So that's one. Another one that I would maybe call attention to would be the interfaith dialogues that we've been having. I think most people would agree that the two most hot-button issues generally are politics and religion.
Facts. I don't think that's an understatement.
Right. So we're going to do something with politics as this year unfolds, but religion is a constant. So I personally sought out religious leaders. There's some humorous stories behind that too, and just asked them, say, this is what's going on. Would you be interested in forming a group that would be a safe group? It would be not a debate. It wouldn't be uncomfortable. There's ground rules for the whole purpose of just sharing who you are and helping others understand, not necessarily what you believe, but why you believe it. And that has just been a smashing success. We met about 4 times. Against Bolt volunteered their conference room for us to do that, a neutral setting. And they enjoyed it the first time so much over Zoom that they insisted upon meeting personally, which only enhanced the relational context. And then they decided, we want to invite some of our other people into this. So we agreed that they would each invite 4 people, and we would form 5 or 6 groups of around 9 or 10 with a facilitator for each. And that took place at the Neenah Library. And there wasn't one person that failed to show up, and that's unusual. They all really enjoyed it. We took post surveys and got a lot of feedback, and so they want to continue that, even to the point, which I think is very wise. They want to actually set up service opportunities with various members of the various faiths, like a Habitat for Humanity home build, where they're working side by side. There's something about doing something together rather than just sitting and talking that enhances relationships, and you talk about informal things, you laugh, you're doing something together, and it just helps you to grow in friendship.
Absolutely. I think it just helps humanize each other.
Right.
That's fantastic. Okay. Are there any upcoming initiatives, events, or engagement opportunities that Common Ground is going to be facilitating?
Well, right now, the interfaith conversations are primarily focused on invite only, as you can understand. Mm-hmm. We are working on along with the city, on the shelterless issue, where we're thinking through community conversations all across the city to get input and feedback so that a plan can be formulated by the community that the city would help to populate when that time comes. That's still in the workings too. So those are the main things, along with the political initiative that I mentioned. So currently the things we're working on don't have a particular date assigned to them. But we do have regular opportunities to be trained in what we call our Golden Rule workshop. And what we've learned is that every religion has a form of the Golden Rule.
Right.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Every single one. We've got a poster that puts it in their own language that is highly illustrative. So we take people through a Golden Rule training workshop that offers them the skills and the rationale for moving towards people who are the other, different, and the value of that relationally, over the long term. We follow that up by those who are really interested and caught up with the vision or mission through a facilitator training where we actually equip certain individuals to facilitate these community conversation groups and to guide them without participating themselves. So they're attuned to enabling each participant to have the the safest, most gratifying experience while they just watch over adherence to the ground rules. So it does serve to be not only a safe but an enriching experience. So there's that. And beyond that, I would say I would really encourage for those that go in that progression, Golden Rule Workshop, facilitator training, that we are always looking for diverse members to join our steering team so that we are practicing the very thing we're trying to encourage. We have diversity all across the board, and we need some of that, on our steering team. And I think that the other thing I would encourage, this is more, we encourage this all throughout, but for the listener, that if they can take the initiative to begin to seek out those that are different from them. Again, whether it's just be difference or it's an opposition in terms of conviction or belief, and just wonder if they can have some coffee and sit down and listen.
I'm all about tea.
And you know how I sought you out.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Yes, long before I was ever in this role.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
For that purpose.
That was fantastic. Well, you kind of jumped into my next question, which is, is what can the community do to be helpful to Common Ground in their mission?
Yeah, I really did jump in and answer that question already. For those particulars, I would really want to emphasize again that last point, because it's, as I've already emphasized, it's just something that's not natural. We all tend to drift towards, our tribe and our comfort zone. People are like us in so many ways, and we don't have to think, we don't have to work. But that's not going to be tremendously valuable if we're really looking to form what a community really is about. Community is unity. There's a unity in diversity. But my personal belief, there's a lot of appropriate emphasis on diversity now. But unless we have a even primary focus on working towards unity, then if we only focus on diversity, we'll have a lot of tribes that are really emphasizing their own thing, but they'll be separate. So an emphasis on too much on diversity can actually work against unity, if you're following me there. Does that make sense?
I mean, it makes sense. Absolutely. It's a point taken. There is, in our conversations in particular, and what we are always hoping for, and the point of Appleton Engaged podcast existing is, we're trying to create the best community that we can where everybody can feel like they belong.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And there's unity in that purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. What can people do if they would like to learn more, or how do they contact Common Ground? Matter of fact, when Common Ground does offer these opportunities to engage in these conversations, where do they find those at?
Well, our website obviously is commongroundfoxcities.org, and everything's going to be posted there, including how to contact us on an online form. There are also a couple of our leadership team who have their personal contact information to reach out personally with questions. We work with Amazing Events right here in town that does just a wonderful job in helping us organize, administer, and put out flyers and marketing efforts to as much as possible alert the community, at large. And given our partners and those who have supported us and funded us and those that we've engaged in these conversations before, there's a lot of voice-to-voice sharing of what's going on. More and more we're finding.
Okay. And I got one last question. Is there any additional information that you would like to share with our listeners that you didn't get an opportunity to share?
Well, let's see. I could go in a lot of different directions here.
Uh-oh.
But I will do this because this seems to fit. We began talking about this a little earlier before we went on air. And I think that Common Ground, our effort, sometimes gets lost because the focus of what we're trying to do doesn't serve immediate practical physical needs, like shortages of food, health care, child care, housing, those kinds of things that grab the headlines because they're immediate needs that need to be addressed. And we understand that fully. Well, what our business here is to facilitate and nurture relationships And the benefit of those relationships as they grow usually doesn't come till down the road. But let me just tell you this story. We'll emphasize it. One of our consultant, Dr. Catherine Wilson, who's guided us in a lot of the work we do, completed a PhD in genocidal studies. And she went all over the world to all the areas that you could name where a people group was deemed exterminable, if that's a word. And she did extensive studies in terms of what would lead a particular locality to deem a particular people group as worthy of being eliminated. And in every case, there was a progression that started with isolation. They were isolated from one another. They did not have relationships or contact. And then that moved over time from isolation to stereotyping. And it was almost always negative, not positive stereotypes, but negative stereotypes that said, these people are characterized by this, and it's not good. So let's stay away from them. And then it moved from there to not only do we not like these people, but they're a problem to our particular culture, our particular society. And then it moved progressively towards not only their problem, but we would be better off if they weren't around. So it led to violence, led to genocide. In every case, separation, lack of relationships was progressive. And you know as well as I do that that's where we're at right now. There is so much separation, polarization, isolation, perpetuated by the media and social media, that people rarely have the opportunity to really understand the humanity and the worth and the dignity of people who not only are different, but really oppositional in their convictions and beliefs. And if they had the chance to do that, empathy, an understanding of their humanity, and what we've seen is an actual ability to like them. We've lost that art in our society to actually have relationships and like those who are not only different, but we sincerely disagree with.
Yes. My short way of what you're talking about is we got to take down our silos. We actually got to hang out with each other.
Right.
And we need to get back to humanizing each other.
Yep. You always have a way of simplifying what I complicate.
No, you didn't complicate. You gave the full word version, and we need that too. So, okay. Well, it's that time of the show. It is shout out time. Jim, who do you want to shout out?
Well, I'm so thankful for those who have funded us, like the Community Foundation, United Way, KC, and others. If I forget your name, please forgive me here at the moment. So many of our partners who've come alongside us, like the school district, World Relief. I'll also, of course, mention Bolt, and many others. Our facilitators, we've got a great team of facilitators that avail themselves regularly to lead these dialogue circles. Our steering team that has devoted lots of time to think through and make these offerings to the community possible. And I'm very thankful, and we certainly are looking for many others to join us in this great work of relationship and friendship building towards a thriving community.
Thank you, Jim.
My privilege.
At this time, we're going to start wrapping up this show. Appleton Engaged listeners, thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for giving us your minds and ears. Thank you for being interested in another one of our community's amazing resources, helping to make where we live a better place, no doubt. We are a work in progress. We're trying to get better. And how do we get better? Well, we need you to help us become a better podcast. And that would mean, please reach out to us and let us know, what do you like about the show? How can we improve the show? What would you like to see happen with the show? Or maybe you would like to be a guest. Maybe you are a member of a great resource yourself. Come be a guest on Appleton Engaged. Or maybe you would like to recommend a guest. We take those recommendations and we will reach out to those individuals and we will see if there's an interest in being here on Appleton Engaged. Also, I got another ask, and that ask is this: help us get in front of more eyes and more ears. We think we have something very special here at Appleton Engaged, and the more community members that learn about this resource hub, this audio resource hub that we've created here for the city of Appleton, I think the more members of our community would love to know about this. And so how do we expand the word? Take a moment and hit the subscribe button. You're listening to this podcast, hit the subscribe button. Also, if you have a few more minutes, just take a few more minutes and just fill out a review. Pressing subscribe and filling out a review are the ways to help us improve our analytics. And the better our analytics, the more the algorithms go out there and put Appleton Engaged in front of more eyes and ears of our community members. Okay, so at this time, we're going to go ahead and wrap up fully. Until next time, stay thoughtful, stay curious, and stay engaged.